to your Daily 5 for Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. For our kind of community film, or whatever we are going to call this, where Lando and I watch a movie together, Lando wanted something that was not going to have any detrimental effect on his brain. And so we chose to watch a 1981 science fiction comedy film titled Visitors from the Arkana Galaxy, which is a Czech film about a writer who is writing a book and starts to find that some of the characters from the book seem to be manifesting into reality. Now, that's not a spoiler at all because the trailer gives that away. And in fact, this all happens within the span of 15 minutes or so that you start to realize these things are happening. So it's really not a spoiler. And honestly, I'm not sure that the term spoiler even has much of a meaning in a movie like this, because I will say this is probably one of the more bizarre films I've watched in a while, and that's saying something. But a movie that is consistently engaging and entertaining and has, as Lando agrees too, has some really great effects for a movie from 1981. There is some really inventive, interesting, and funny stuff in this movie. And it seems like part of that is because a surreal animator was involved. I think, I don't know the nationality, but whoever this is a well-known surrealist animator. And boy, is that evident. You've got stop motion effects. You've got some really beautiful optical effects, including one that I've rewatched a few times. I'll talk about it in detail on Friday, just to keep things relatively spoiler-free, even though, like I said, actually, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. This doesn't give anything away. There's a part where a coffee cup is manifested from a metal plate, some kind of device. And it's really well done, to the point where, I mean, I would have to probably go frame by frame, and unfortunately, trying to get a physical copy of this is next to impossible unless you want to pay big money. It's free to watch. You can watch it for free on Tubi, but getting an actual Blu-ray copy of it right now is very expensive. It's $150 or so or north, and I'm not going to buy that for going frame by frame. But without going literal high-def frame by frame, it looked so seamlessly well done that it almost looked like a CG effect that had been intentionally stopped so it looked like it was stop motion. But it wasn't. Obviously, 1981, they were not doing this type of stuff. And that's just one of a number of really interesting and inventive effects. The movie does become an absurdist satire at a certain point, which I think works for it. There's a scene that happens in the second half of the film that when it started, Lando and I really didn't know what was going to happen just within the context of this scene. And I doubt either of us could have predicted any of what happened. And that's just one out of a number of scenes of that type. It is a delightfully off-the-wall movie because it really just, you don't know what's going to happen next. And yet you are compelled to keep watching because the movie has it has a relatively brisk pace. And also because it's not an American film, there are things that happen. This is another movie where Lando at one point, I think as a joke, said something, and the movie immediately did it, and I really would never have expected it. So again, I'm keeping this spoiler light, even though it's a retro review, and I generally don't care about that, because we'll get into it in detail when we talk Friday. But also, the commentary for this one is a lot of us going, whoa, what, okay. But in the best way. There are movies that confound the viewer in, I think, ways that will become irritating and tiresome. And then there's a movie like this, in which the things that are being done are so outside of the typical boundaries of how a movie works. Not literal experimental film, not that far. It's not wavelength or anything. But in other words, it's going outside of the conventional storytelling mechanisms so that you never quite know what's coming next. That's not to say it's nonsensical. It simply is not playing by the typical rules that any movie will play in. And I think that's what makes it so fascinating. I think it's absolutely worth watching. It's relatively short, 90 minutes. And I guarantee that it's unlikely that unless you've watched this already, that you will have seen anything quite like this before. So Visitors from the Arkana Galaxy, boy, oh boy, is it hard to compare it to anything else. But you know what? That's exactly what makes it so worth watching. Later.